And you may begin when ready.
Thanks, Bart. Good morning. I'll call to order the NIAA Sports Medicine Advisory Committee meeting for March 19th, 2025. Call this meeting to order at 9:02. And Ms. Wonder, if you would take roll, please.
Dr. Murray,
Present.
Dr. Scott,
Present.
Dr. Stovak, Adam Hunsaker,
Present.
Jeremy Haas,
Present.
Nicole McFarland, Pamela Sloan,
Here.
Mark Dianza,
Present.
Roland Stallworth,
Here.
Kyle Lemon, Steve Rower,
Here.
Ernie Howren, Tim Jackson,
Present.
Paul Anderson, and myself, Tia Wonder.
Thanks, Tim. Public comment number 3. This time provides an opportunity for citizens to address the committee about any matter not on the agenda. Items raised during this portion of the agenda cannot be deliberated or acted upon. Should a member of the public wish to speak on a matter not listed on the agenda, it is asked that the said person please complete a green public comment card and submit it to the committee chair prior to the opening of this item. Members of the public who have submitted public comments by email will have their emails read into the record. A limit of 3 minutes per person and/or 5 minutes for the spokesperson of a particular group may be imposed. It is requested that comments be directed to the committee as a whole. Comments that are determined to be irrelevant, repetitious, offensive, inflammatory, willfully disruptive, or deemed to be personal attacks will not be permitted. There is currently no one here in the office. I have received no emails. Tia, have you received anything?
No.
And is there anyone at any of the remote sites? Okay. Mr. Dianza, if you say you have someone at your remote site, I'd be very shocked, but that's all good. Thank you for coming in. I know where you're at right now, and I appreciate this. Thank you. Item number 4, approval of the March 19, 2024 meeting agenda for possible action. As you see before you, we have the agenda. I ask if anyone would make a motion that they do make it flexible. So I'm looking for a motion for the approval of this agenda.
Roland Stallworth, I'll make the motion to approve the agenda and make it a flexible one as well for today's meeting.
This is Pam Sloan. I'll second.
And we have a first and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone
Aye.
opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
We have an agenda. Thank you. Approval of the September 12th, 2024 meeting minutes for possible action. Those meeting minutes are attached to your packet. Anyone with a motion to approve the minutes from the previous meeting?
This is
Dr.
Pam
Murray,
Sloan. I will make the motion to approve the September 12th, 2024 meeting notes.
I'll second that.
I got a first from Ms. Sloan, second from Dr. Murray. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. I want to thank everyone for the flexibility that they're showing for this committee right now. I will tell you that it's been a trying time. I'm not making excuses. I'm just stating fact to get through these committees with the current staffing we have at the office right now. With the realignment and the legislative session, we've had our hands quite full. But I want to thank you all for that. We briefly talked at the last meeting, and there were some emails going back and forth about a task force assignments for some ideas and some items. The 4 on the agenda that you see before you, EAPs, pregame meeting, policy and procedure, dunk tanks, and athletic trainer equipment kit and materials were the primary ones when I went back and reviewed and looked at the emails. But the one thing I realized at that point when I sent that out was this committee is not very large. So dividing up the committee into these just made it basically boil down to one person being in charge of one item. And I just don't know if that's very good use of our resources by spreading ourselves that thin, or if it is a better use that we we do that, and then that one person come back and present to this committee. So with that, I want to stop talking and I want to open it up to see where we want to head with this, what we're looking at, and what we think would be beneficial to the SMAC committee moving forward.
I know that personally on my end, I don't see any problem with splitting it into 1s, 2s, and 3s. I think sometimes we can get a little bit more done that way because we have less cooks in the kitchen trying to help us make some recommendations and decisions. And I think we're a pretty close-knit group. We understand each other pretty well and have pretty similar like-minded approaches. And so we can kind of, I would almost recommend that we'd have a primary person who would take charge of that item and then 1 or 2 secondary that would support it and basically provide written comment, feedback, those type of things.
Any other comments, suggestions, ideas, concerns? If not, we can do that right now. We can divide this up and do exactly what we had talked about. What I did not want to do was put more on people's plates than was already there without having the conversation first. So with that being said, let's go right down the list then. Emergency action plans. What I think we need here is, I know that most districts have them. I don't think we want to reinvent the wheel, but what I think we need to do, and I don't want to take this on, I shouldn't do it this way, but I don't have another way of saying it, is that we should look at these and say, maybe a review of or an implementation of an emergency action plan or template. So I'm looking for someone who would like to lead that that charge.
I'm fine with the EAP stuff. I'm actually speaking on EAPs at our meeting up next month, working on some EAP resources with a couple groups with NATA. So I've gotten pretty familiar with some of the stuff and the new recommendations that came out last year. So I'd be happy to work on that group with anyone.
I'd be happy to help with that.
Right? So I got Mark and Nicole.
If you need a third, I'd be more than happy to work with them as well.
All right. Yeah, Mark, Nicole, Pam on EAP. Letter B, pregame meeting policy and procedure.
So one thing I want to throw out there about this is actually in the new EAP recommendations that this should be happening. So it's almost like it's part of that already.
Okay.
And it's one of those things we are creating resources for.
Yeah, I agree with Mark on that. I don't know how that's really its own thing. I mean, unless we're talking about specifically what we're discussing in those pregame meetings, but that's pretty standardized and part of the EAP. So I think it would kind of just fold right into that one as well.
Congratulations, Mark. Your folder just got a little bit thicker.
All good.
Okay. Letter C is dunk tanks. This is more of a funding aspect and a research aspect. I think this is something that can come through our office. So once again, if there's anybody who wants to work with me on that one, I think our office would take on the dunk tanks to find out who has them and who needs them and how we fund them if they don't have them. I think that's a one our office can handle without much trouble, and it's very straightforward for me on what that is. So I will be glad to take the dunk tanks and move forward with that and get that survey done and get it out. I think the spring is a great time to do it. As we start to warm up, we'll find out who has them and who needs them, and in short order.
When those were passed out, where did those come from? Were those from the? I know the NIAA. Yeah, wasn't the NATA when they came here, Mark?
Mark and I worked on that. Where did we get those, Mark?
We got those from NATA when we had our national meeting hosted in Las Vegas in 2019. So they got it to all the public schools, I believe, in Clark County.
Yeah.
All of
so
them
it was just Clark County.
One. I believe so.
Okay. So we would really be looking at like Nye County and then everybody up north and stuff as well are probably the ones that weren't included in that.
Clark County School District, stalwart.
So, yeah, I'll work on that. That's, I actually have the old stuff, Mark, from when we did it to see who wanted them. And then we told them, now you're getting one anyway. So, Because that came, yeah, that was it. Yeah, so I have that information. I'll work on that. I'll be glad to do that. That's not a very in-depth one at that point. Just find out who has them, who needs them, and then we can work on finding a grant or some funding for those on the back end there. And letter D is the athletic trainer, equipment kit and materials, the sort of like the standard operating procedure for schools that don't maybe have an ATA with them at all times, or that do and maybe need a little assistance and guidance for the schools to know what they should be providing. I think this one could be very detailed. I think it could be very informative because I don't think a lot of schools maybe have the idea of what they should be supplying or need to be supplying for their ATAs. So I'm looking for someone who would like to take on the ATA toolbox.
I can do that. Adam.
I was assuming you were, Adam. I just didn't want to, self-assign.
So for clarity on that one as well, are we talking about kits that schools should be providing if they do not have an athletic trainer? I mean, we're assuming
the way I was kind of thinking about it is, yeah, trying to standardize what schools provide on the sideline, with or without an athletic trainer. Obviously, schools with an athletic trainer, the athletic trainers bring in their own kit for the most part. But I think a recommendation of A, what should be in a med kit, and then B, what should your sideline setup be?
Okay.
Everything from medical equipment to water and ice. Like, I'm surprised how many schools don't even put out water and ice for the visiting team. So things like that.
Understood.
And Adam, if I could, I mean, I'm happy to help with this, but I was also thinking that I know that we do have schools without athletic trainers. And so I almost want to expand that. We've got the kit, and I would like to see a recommended in-house, what you should have in your training room as well. I would love to see some sort of a standardized element there that we can provide.
Okay. As in just on site. So when you say in the training room, so even schools without an athletic trainer, this is the minimum for a med kit on the sideline, but larger equipment as a whole, you should have elsewhere in a athletic training type setting.
Yep, some sort of like a preferred, like we give them our ideal list, and then we say, at a bare minimum, here's your things you need to have.
Okay.
Can I just ask a question here and just sort of think about this? If we're talking about schools without athletic trainers, the only things they should be providing is emergency equipment. They should not be providing any athletic training supplies because nobody should be acting as an athletic trainer without one. But every coach is certified in CPR AED. That the AED, like that's the tool you should have.
Yeah, so that's basically what I'm getting at is like without an athletic trainer, the med kit should be basic first aid, CPR AED.
I just don't want us trying to promote anything where we're saying, hey, you don't need an AT if you have these supplies. Like, that should not be our goal coming from this committee.
I'm not talking about athletic taping supply, any of that. It's going to be basic first aid, CPR AED.
Yeah.
Done.
And I think a lot of that, Mark, stems from we get questions, and our office also gets questions like, hey, what's the bare minimum that we should have in these kits? Like for Reed High School that didn't have an athletic trainer, what should we be providing on the sideline? So it's just one of those where it's like, you don't go outside your scope of practice, please. Let's just make sure that we've got things buttoned up at a bare minimum. Here's what is to expect.
I think maybe to add that, like Reed, for example, is in my league. So when I travel to Reed, I end up being the only ATC on site, and I'm not going to withhold services from a Reed athlete if they get hurt or whatever, but it would also be nice if there was something that Reed could provide that I could use for their athlete instead of dipping into my own supplies. I think there's room for that as well.
That makes sense, but that means we need to know exactly what ATs are actually traveling with their teams, because again, if we're putting out supplies, people are going to start using them and they're going to start acting, and then that's going to bring out a way bigger problem for our state than we currently have.
Understood. And I think like when I travel, like football, I think is the example. I travel with football. That's pretty much it.
And that makes sense. And that makes sense. And yeah, I get that people want to be reimbursed with supplies. I just want to make sure our sports medicine advisory committee isn't advising people how to act without an AT. Like
100%.
Mark, I'm gonna be honest with you. My whole vision for this was the administrator that's at a soccer game that there isn't a trainer at, and they don't know what they're supposed to do, and not tape and pre-wrap. It's general first aid. This really stems for me back in my days at CCSD right after COVID, the COVID to go backpack. Remember, they provided the generic stuff in there for the COVID backpack. And I thought this would be really good for us to show schools. This is what should be in that backpack of generic things that you take with you that you should have for first aid, not splints and air casts and no, I'm not thinking anything like that. I'm thinking exactly the same line you guys are thinking. But at the same time, I'm also thinking of when Adam goes away for football and somebody comes to his school or vice versa, and there's one ATA on that sideline. At a bare minimum, you should have some ice and some water on that other sideline for us. Maybe have the training table out on the football field. We're bringing ours to your site, but have yours out there ready to go for us if we need to come over. Stuff like that. And I think that would be very beneficial because as we've gone through some of the things we've gone through this year, the one thing we have learned is the life expectancy of an athletic administrator and an athletic director in the state of Nevada is now under 3 years, which means we are burning them up and burning them out before the kids even graduate. So a freshman coming in will see 2 athletic directors and possibly 2 athletic administrators. So they're very green, very young, and very inexperienced, and don't know that when you're setting up for a basketball game at your site, you should have the training table out there ready to go, or access to the room, or whatever the case may be, in case the other school does bring their ATA, needs that access. So I really want to make sure that we can start to provide those kind of guidance and services to those individuals as we start to move into year 2 of our 5-year plan in the office here as to where we're moving. The NIAA, this is one of those areas that I think we need to move forward with, as in game operation and site management, and what it takes to run a site. And I want you guys to know that at the next board meeting, after they approve the fall and winter postseason alignments for postseason state championships, we have a document ready to go, waiting for the final approval in March, where we're going to have slotted out the next 3 years of regional and state tournament sites. We will know where we're going, who's in learning that the turnover rate is 3 years. The athletic director at Shadow Ridge, that's a bad example. They've been there, she's been there for a while. Well, I use it anyway. The athletic director at Shadow Ridge, who's there today, in 3 years when they host, may not be, and they don't know what they need to know, so that we can guide them into that whole area. So that's why this has become very important and very paramount as we move forward with this. So I'm appreciative of that. I've seen in the chat, people have said that they're willing to work on other aspects with you. If you will reach out to them, I will put Adam, you're going to be the point for ATA. Mark, you're going to be the point for EAP. I'll be the point for dunk. And if anybody really wants to talk about dunk tanks, I'm always open to it. But we'll move forward with that. So is there any other conversation or any other discussion before we move forward with what's going to happen, or who's going to take over? So what I think we're looking for now then is reporting out afterwards at the next meeting, start to bring it together so we can start to formulate it. I don't know. I'm going to ask you, Mark, as we're sitting here, and Adam, is August a rollout for any of this too fast, that we can get this stuff ready to go for August? I don't think it is.
No,
Okay.
it's plenty of time. Honestly, when it gets nuts and bolts with some of this, I think
Okay.
a lot of it's already in motion, frankly. So I think that'd be fine.
Okay. So then we'll look forward to that. That way I can report on that at the next board meeting, that we're working on these 3. We narrowed it down to 3. And then we'll look at an August rollout for this stuff. I don't think there's anything there that's going to be earth-shattering or unexpected from the schools where they would be like, oh my God, what is this? So I think we'll be good there. So that should take us through number 7 with the timelines that we're looking for an August rollout. And then we'll obviously schedule a meeting between now and let's see, this is March, probably a meeting in May just to touch base and see where we're at. Another SMAC meeting in May, and we'll do that, and then dismiss for the summer, and then come back together and maybe in early August to talk again and see where we're at if there's anything else. So with that, we'll move to number 8. Ms. Sloan asked for this to be put on the agenda. I wanted this on the agenda. This is the return of the pre-participation form to the packet. We took this out. The SMAC had this at the request of the SMAC. This was taken out before the last packet update that was done. The reason this has come forward is there have been numerous situations reported to me and to Ms. Sloan and to other administrators around around Nevada that what information is on there is not provided to the school and has resulted in some situations that health services has been concerned with without naming names or providing specific locations or anything else. Information like peanut allergies, not being aware of a peanut allergy that a student had, a student with a heart condition, more importantly, a student with a that had just given birth and had not shared that information with the school. And I think the school, and I can tell you that I'm going to turn this over to Pam at this moment. This is pressing. So, Ms. Sloan?
No, you're absolutely right. And that's one of many situations. And back in the day when we had the document that was pretty explicit, you know, from any type of injuries, any type of illnesses, and it's the history that is so important, and they need to be in the know. And I know that Tim said health services has been very vocal in regards to this. Our athletic trainers have been very vocal about having this information. Even our risk management department, school nurses. Jeremy, do you want to weigh in on this as well?
In what regards?
In regards of having access to this, how beneficial it would be for you to have these documents.
I can if you want to. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Nicole.
No. Yeah, go ahead.
They complained to me before they complained to Jeremy, so I hear it before he does. But yeah, so our athletic trainers are also missing a lot of that information because it's not filled out the way it should be, the way it was intended to be filled out. So we don't know about those things. We don't know about history of surgeries. We don't know about, asthma, things that we as athletic trainers should be knowing and should be able to prepare for, and that's no one knows about it. Not us, but health services, nursing, all of that. And if we could have that information like we used to, it would help us be able to be better prepared.
It's true. And to piggyback off what Nicole's saying there, I mean, it was pretty standard practice for our athletic trainers to go through these packets years ago and to look for kids with sickle cell, look for kids with allergies and different asthmas and things that may come across, during the season. We've kind of lost that ability. And I know that it was this committee that actually kind of helped kind of remove that, I think at, some of our physicians on this board's recommendations. But I certainly would back up both what Pam and Nicole are saying here in regards to the complaints that we get from our staff, mostly just because it's taken away some of the things that we used to be able to do.
If I might put my input in here, I certainly want access to the information. The question I have is, could we make this part of Register My Athlete? And maybe I shouldn't speak for all athletic trainers, but I have access to the Register My Athlete for my athletes. Is that the case for all ATCs for the most part? So could we make a pre-participation form that's a required form to fill out an RMA? So that way we don't have to go through one by one. We can kind of auto-populate a report that way. That would certainly make it much easier than going through packet by packet, which is essentially the way it used to be done, which is important and needs to be done, but also super tedious. So if we're going to do this, could we do it and utilize technology we have?
Yeah, It's a fair suggestion. I guess, is that something that can even be done within RMA? Like we would have to probably create, that form or that questionnaire to add in there.
Yeah, and that would take developmental time. And I'm not trying to say it's not a great idea, Adam. I think it's an idea that's worth its weight in gold because it would put that information right in there and accessible through the RMA process. But I would have to reach out to Activate to see what that would entail, as that would be developmental. They would have to develop that aspect of it. I don't know how hard that would be. I can reach out and find out. I mean, that's an email and a phone call. So I can do that. I mean, right now we have the form, which I threw in your guys' packet, which is the old form that they upload when they upload the physical, they can upload this with it. But if that's something we can actually put in there, I don't know. I would have to check. So I will gladly reach out to Activate and find out if that's a possibility.
Can I piggyback on that? In talking to Activate, can we make sure that it is not something that can be easily bypassed or not filled out, or you can hit the space bar and that counts it as being filled in, or, one of those types of
Yes.
things?
We can
Mandatory.
definitely make the field required fillable. I would be sitting here looking at this thinking, yeah, you want to make sure they answer every single question and answer it
Right.
with the space. And they
We'll
never
still do
do.
it wrong, but it's okay. We'll get some of them.
I still like I didn't know you could use the space bar to bypass that. Thank you for that information.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I do it on our
And-
performance reviews all the time.
I never knew that would work. I'm
Nicole.
loving that, Nicole. Thank you. I totally.
Only on Jeremy's. But it's required and you hit spacebar, it counts as a space. It's great.
All this time, I could have just been moving myself right on through there.
So, when we changed this a few years ago, it was out of a recommendation from the American Academy of Pediatrics because they said, hey, all the
Right.
medical information should stay private. And that was the whole reasoning behind this. And there is a form that's supposed to be turned in from the doctor that's supposed to list these things. So are we making this change because doctors aren't doing their job, or
Yes.
like are they just uneducated about what they're supposed to be doing? And is there a way we could fix that and keep what like that's I'm just looking at this like, hey, we're gonna go against the AAP recommendations just because Nevada docs aren't doing their due diligence. And realistically, if the kid lies to the doctor or lies on that form, we're still getting the same information. So we still may not know those things. So, I mean, that's my only thing is like, where is this actually going to fix a problem if we go back,
I don't know
revert
if
to
it
the
will
old
fix.
form?
I don't think it's going to be a safety net that'll work 100%, Mark. But I will tell you, you hit on something about the doctors. Literally this year, we had to go round and round with a school because a doctor refused to use our form for a physical. Refused, said, I'm not filling it out. And we said, well, then don't send the kid to the doctor. The doctor's not you, we can't send it there. Then we were stuck in a situation where, well, you know what? Guess what? That's the only doctor available. And so what you're saying is doctors not doing it correctly. I think that might be part of it. Some of them may be refusing. I don't want to speak for them. I'm not trying to speak ill, but it's a light that's been shined on this very brightly in more areas than just CCSD. That this form is supposed to be shared with. We're supposed to have that information, and they're just not. We're not getting it. I don't know what the solution to that is. So I'm going to stop now and let the group.
Yeah. Was it Dr. Scott? Was it?
Yeah, you know me. I mean, this is trying to kind of think through this. I think the athletic trainers should have all the information. I do think, we have FERPA and HIPAA, which we want it to be protected. I can't remember if there was an issue with if they don't have an athletic trainer, were they concerned that a non-medical person had access to this? And maybe that was part of it, but it doesn't seem like it's working very well for health and safety if we're not finding out things about the student athletes that we need to.
Yeah.
So, and I'm sorry about the doctors not filling out the forms. But Tim, if you want me to talk to that doctor ever, I'd be happy to.
I think we resolved the issue very quickly because there were quite a few people who were supposed to be going there, and then they were like, we can't if you're not going to fill it out. Well, all of a sudden the form changed and we're good. So, but you know, that was a concern we had. So
Is there someone who can speak to the relationship of HIPAA to FERPA? Because there's some overlap there and overlap when it comes to protected health information. I understand that the American Academy of Pediatrics, I'm sure, is more on the HIPAA side of things, but every student fills out a health questionnaire to enroll in school, whether they're an athlete or not. School nurses have access to that. Administrators can look at that. And I thought that was protected under FERPA, like FERPA covered that. So I'm not sure what the issue is here. If a student were to fill out a form on Activate or Infinite Campus or Power School or whatever system the school is using, the people that are granted access to that are going to be in positions, whether it's school administrators, athletic trainers, nurses, even coaches to an extent, that would be covered under either FERPA or HIPAA. So I'm not, and maybe someone understands those two and how they work together better than I do, but I don't see why that would be an issue.
Well, FERPA it includes anybody who's like your administrators and your head coach and things of that, school nurse, right? But like, let's say you've got a football player that also plays baseball, and that football player breaks his ankle during the football season. The baseball coach does not have access to that information until he's a baseball player, right? So that's the problem with putting information like that on Activate, is that I think any of the coaches have access to be able to pull this information. So that's the difference with FERPA, is anybody who could take that in loco parentis. So that would be your administrators and your head coach. But technically your like JV coach can't look at any of that information for varsity players, even though they're a football coach. And same goes with other sports. So I think that's the issue, and why we kind of changed this years ago was because putting things on Activate or RMA or whatever you want to call it, there's no way to really limit the information on there like there is in some other platforms.
Fair enough.
I think that maybe Dr. Scott can speak to this, but I think she's the one who had to go in front of the firing squad and talk about this form. But there were a lot of states who took a lot of heat because the second page of this form that I got came through as Spanish, so I can't read it. But when you look at the real form, the second page has 4 questions on menstrual disorders. And I think sharing that was a big political deal. And so you might consider, first you have to remove the top headings of both of those history pages. And then you have to, I would consider removing all those menstrual questions if you're going to be sharing questions like that. Just a thought, because I know that was a big deal in several states.
Yeah. And I don't know if we want to take on, completely redoing this form, but your point's well taken, that what we need to know is asthmas, allergies, sickle cells, things that, your average athletic trainer doesn't need to know the menstrual cycle of their athletes and stuff. So, maybe if we can, limit some of the information that's being turned in, and we can get best of both worlds. We can still follow what the physician recommendations are on the form and not having it be readily available for everybody, but also we can be getting the information off it that we need.
So my question would be then, moving forward with this discussion, what I don't want to do is reinvent the wheel. I don't at all. Is there a section? Oh, man. What I don't want to do is get into a part where we're turning this in, but we're not turning this in, and we're turning this in, and what we're gonna end up with is a hodgepodge and not get what we need. Period. What's gonna happen is just, if it becomes too cumbersome, the modus operandi for most people, just not do it. It's too much. I'm not going to do it. So I think that if we move forward, and I do believe we should move forward in some way, shape, or form, what parts of this should go in and what parts of it should not. And if that's the case, perhaps then we just change the order of the and say pages 1 and 2 are submitted with the physical, or what. I don't even know. I have no idea. I'm throwing ideas out.
not to keep talking on this, but I think the path of easiest resistance here would be to start with what Carol mentioned and maybe start talking to the doctors and making sure that they're doing their part and filling out the information that we do need. I think that's probably the easiest way than recreating this entire form or our entire process. Because, you know, to piggyback of what Mark said, I think it's important for us to continue to follow what the recommendations are from, you know, the physicians, but it's also really important, as Pam brought up, that we need this information to be provided to our athletic trainers and to our schools so we can better prepare for these emergencies.
How, not to ask a seemingly stupid question, but how do you talk to and educate every physician in the state
Yeah,
from high
that's
level people that they're seeing to the, you know, walk-a-doc in Walgreens or whatever, that there's, you know what I mean? Like they see such a wide range of physicians to get these clearances. I don't even know how you begin to even touch all of that.
Yeah, maybe a cover page on the form that explains what the needs are. I mean, because you're right, you can't go talk to every doctor, but maybe we can change what we're sending out and have a cover page on it that explains exactly what we need to get back.
We
Do you
did
think they
that when
read
we
it?
first changed. Oh, sorry, Nicole. You go
Oh,
ahead.
I was just gonna say, do you think they'll actually read it? I mean, I don't know, a quick physician going, you know, trying to bang through patients and get them in and out. I don't know. I just don't know if they'll actually read it.
We did that when we first rolled this out and explained why we were doing it and where they could get the form. Tim, do we have any kind of a cover page on at this point, or?
No, we don't. Whatever's in Activate right now is basically what we have, or whichever is on the state site. We don't have a cover page that I'm familiar with, unless I missed it, but I didn't see it. I'm in Nicole's corner on this one. I mean, I know that I can't even get my doctor's office to call in a prescription correctly for me. And listen, I need my cholesterol medication. You know, that heart attack's coming. So I want to make sure I stave it off as long as possible. But that that concerns me because I don't think it's a matter of willful neglect. I don't think that's what it is. I just think it's exactly what Nicole said. They're turning and churning through these as fast as they can because we have such limited access for everyone in Nevada. Nationwide, there's a shortage. We all know that, of good physicians. So, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what the answer is to this. I know there's a definite need on the side of the schools and the athletic trainers to have this information. I don't know what the best route forward is. Now, going back to the FERPA HIPAA, I think we would be okay under, and I'm not a lawyer, and I know I'll talk to Paul about this to make sure, under FERPA, this would become a school record. It would fall under the FERPA, so we would have to limit who would have the access to it. My question would be then, do we limit it to the point where it has to be turned into the athletic trainer? And that's it?
what happens when the school doesn't have an AT.
And that's where that was my follow-up question. When they don't have an ATA,
Who does it?
who gets
Do they
it?
just turn it into the health office?
Because they don't have a school nurse. I mean, we're going down. Yeah. I mean, these are all concerns that eventually these could end up in the hands of somebody who is not, I don't think should not have them. I mean, obviously, I think it would go then to their administrator and they would have the access to it, who would have it anyway as well. I don't know. But what I don't want to have happen is a situation where we lose a kid simply because we just didn't know.
Is there a way to one of the things that I've noticed too, is there a way we could cross-reference kind of our redundant systems? Like we all have Activate, but then depending on your district, you also have the larger entire student database, which is either Infinite Campus or Power School or whichever one the districts are using. I can't tell you how many times I've gone through an athlete physical that doesn't list a dang thing, but then I find out they have a health flag in their actual student record for asthma or a peanut allergy, but that's not listed at all on their physical form. And this is going back to even when we were doing the two forms, like they just wouldn't cop to it on the original form. So is there a way we could better, you know, and I'm sure there's kids out there that are slipping through the cracks in both systems, but most of the time, if I find out a kid has asthma or a peanut allergy or a cardiac issue or whatever it is kind of after the fact, I can't tell you how many times it wasn't in their physical that was uploaded to Activate, but it was already flagged on their Infinite Campus. And I'm lucky because I have access to both now, but there was a time before I was a teacher where I didn't have access to that whole student record. Where someone in the school does, whether it's the AD or an athletic administrator or an athletic secretary, where we could do some cross-checking and make sure we've at least caught some of those.
I can tell you that while the meeting went in a different direction, the initial purpose of the meeting, Ms. Sloan and I had a meeting with a company who provides a how do I say this? It's a platform where it pulls all the information from all of the different platforms. It pulls it from Infinite Campus, it pulls it from Activate, it pulls it from Our School Today. It can pull from any one that we want it to pull from and put that information on one desktop for you to review. The problem is one, we don't have the system. Two, they aren't sure it could really work. But I see what you're saying, and that would be very beneficial. Where if you pulled up a kid, it would pull all the information from one system, all the systems, and put that kid's information all in one desktop review dashboard. That was what I was looking for. One dashboard to look at, and you would log into one location. That was the key for me. Was some of our schools have to log into 4 or 5 different things now to do anything. But I would say that is something that we could work towards, but it doesn't exist yet that we have access to. The question I had with them was right down the same thing, FERPA and HIPAA. You know, what were the limitations on FERPA and HIPAA, and who logged in and who had access? I don't know. So I know that's in the works, Adam, and I know it's something in my mind that we need, because I think we have our schools log into too many places anyway with Final Forms, Activate, Infinite Campus, and all the other things that we log into.
And those aren't connected.
No, they don't, but they can
No.
talk to each other. And there is a dashboard they're using in the Texas Association of Private and Parochial Schools. TAPS League has gone to this, but they're not doing anything of this high level. They're doing schedules, eligibility, and grade and attendance. But it works. It works right across the board. To pull the kid up, they can see all of it, and it also shows what forms are missing in each one of the platforms. So if a kid's missing something in Infinite Campus, it would be flagged on that dashboard as well. It's not something I'd ever seen before, and I didn't think it would really work, but they got it working. So I'm monitoring it. That's nothing we're going to go to right away, but it's out there.
So
Next step.
if we decide, hey, we do want them to turn the whole history form, and we kind of touched on it, who would they turn it into at the sites?
I think it would have to be turned in with following the normal procedures of, it would go to the ATA if there's an ATA there, administrator if there isn't. And I think we make it that delineated, just 2 places. It goes here or it goes there.
Athletic trainer or not, school nurse or not, there's somebody at every school that is authorized to receive health records for IEP purposes, 504 purposes, like FERPA cover. There's someone at the school it's probably an admin of some kind, but it would have to be whoever is in charge of those records or responsible for those records, athletic trainer, school nurse, or admin.
And then how are those records stored on site?
I mean, right now we upload our physicals, even with, if they do it right, they have the one form that says cleared or not cleared, signed by a physician, and then it's supposed to be that pertinent health history is supposed to be listed. That form is currently uploaded to Activate. So whoever has access to it on Activate, like at my school, I know that's going to be anyone that's listed as an admin in Activate, which is myself, the athletic director, and I think the athletic secretary. I'm not sure, and then I'm not sure how coaches work, because coaches have a different account and different permissions on Activate than admins do. But
Yeah, coaches usually don't have access to that. And I don't even think one of the issues that we have is, I think our school district has just finally released, I think, some information in IC from a health aspect of our athletes to our ATCs for the first time. We've been talking about that for 5 years in our district. And I know that information has been going on and taking place for the first time. There's still some issues with that because I don't think our health people on our campuses are that enthusiastic about giving up information to someone else.
So that I was just going to ask, Raul, do your ATCs, even the ones that are contracted out through like the Rock, they have access to Infinite Campus?
Ours that are teachers do. I want to say that they have worked on giving access to the ones that work at Rock to athletes only. They don't have full access into their system, but they've given them the ability to go get a kid who's been flagged as an athlete goes into that portal in some way, and they're actually able to go in and see if that kid went to the nurse that day or whatever. Because go ahead.
Is every school district in Nevada Infinite Campus, or are we still kind of sprinkled? It is? It's not. Okay.
I don't know. I know Washoe County is. I don't
It's
know
statewide now. I asked that very question about 2 or 3 weeks ago. If it was statewide, it is statewide. Infinite Campus.
Okay. Well, that could help us a lot because in my experience, the student's school record is usually more complete than what I get on Activate. Like percent of the
Yes.
time, I get more information off at Infinite Campus than I do off what was on that physical form on Activate. And if the statewide we're using IC, if there's a way we could grant, I think the issue before with me, like I used to be, I mean, my situation changed, but when I was just Carson Tahoe Health that was contracted to be an athletic trainer at Carson High, the school district was funny and didn't want to give me access to Infinite Campus. Once I became a school district employee, obviously that changed. But if there's a way and school districts are willing to give kind of third-party contractors access to IC, that would be a huge help here because in my experience, the IC information is more complete than the Activate information.
Exactly. And the example we used was how great would it be for our ATCs to come into their office before practice and look at all the athletes in that sport and that sports season that went to go visit the nurse that school day. Because what we end up happening is we have kids that go to practice, they are dehydrated, something's wrong with them. The ACT is taking care of them, and then the ATC finds out when she takes him into the locker room that, oh, I was in the nurse's office all day. And then what the hell are you doing practicing then? Things like that were going on. So that was one of the reasons why I think we were able to get some access for our ATCs in Washoe County to some extent by using that example of it would be nice for our ATCs to know which kids went to go see the nurse today before practice so she can kind of keep an eye on them and have a read down of what the nurse wrote down. The kid was hydrated, didn't eat lunch today, blah, blah, blah. Or the kid complained of a sore throat, blah, 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 but didn't want to go home, stayed in my office all day. That kid really shouldn't be practicing.
Yeah.
So anyway, those are some of the reasons why I think we did get. Now, I'm not 100% sure if they still, all the schools have given that access, but I know that that was a big one that our quote unquote school nurses really didn't want to give up that information.
I'm going to go back to Mark's statement earlier, though. If there is no athletic trainer on campus, is that information being put in the right place? In other words, we're still having that information. If that information is still coming in, it has to be placed somewhere so that they can access it. So the question then becomes, where is the best place for that information to be stored? And how do we make sure it's stored correctly and accessible to the people who need it? I don't know. I don't know many coaches that have full access to Infinite Campus that would be able to get in there and look at that. Same being said, though, in Activate, they don't have full access to the medical end of Activate. So I don't know if that does solve the problem or if it just changes where the underlying problem still exists. Because I agree with that. If you guys, if you can go into Infinite Campus and see it, man, that might even be the best solution of all of these. And we move forward, but I don't know if we'll get access for people who don't have the rights to begin with to even get into it, let alone to that level of access. I can tell you that would be a daunting task for the larger districts. I'm
Exactly.
especially
There, I
Washoe and
mean,
Clark, where I think that it might be easier to move a mountain than to get the access when it's necessary.
Do we
So
know how many states adopted this form when it was first released?
I do not.
I think it's the majority of states now, Mark. And I just looked at 4 or 5 different states and they all have a cover page that says it's really important that you fill out page 3 and keep the, I don't know how, like Nicole said, how many people actually follow that, but everyone I just looked at, Texas, Kansas, Missouri, they have a cover page trying to explain to the healthcare provider why it's so important to put the information on the page that goes back to the school. Oh, I don't have any idea if that's working for people or not. Can't really find anything out there right now.
But, Mr. Jackson, I assume this is something you want to kind of have a decision on before next school year. However, is that like
It
before we
is.
move into the next seasons?
It is something I think we need to go into the next school year with, because if we don't, we got to wait a whole nother year, because as well, there are going to be, and we're definitely not going to go back into the past to get anything. And I would like to let the board know, because here's the thing, if we're going to change this form, the board has to approve it. So we have a board meeting in 2 weeks and we have a board meeting in June. So we have 2 meetings in which we can do it. The problem is between April and June, kids start getting physicals for the next year. And I know that the timing of this is not good. But at the same time, I think it's a pressing issue that I think we need some resolution to, one way or the other. Um, I will also tell you that a recommendation from the SMAC committee can be accepted or rejected by the board, as we've seen with any other committee. The realignment has been accepted, rejected, accepted. So we can see anything of that nature occur. So I still am going to report on this as part of my board report. If it's an agendized item or not, will be dictated more about this at the end, but it will be on there for the April meeting for sure. So that's where I'm at with this. And I know, like I said, the timing of this, Mark, is not good, but I do believe it's something that we probably should take action on in some way, shape, or form.
Can I just ask a couple questions? First of all, back in the day prior to this document, we had a lot of this information because there was that prehistory form, and it did ask a girl about administration, and so on and so forth. But if we go through this form, and I don't believe we need to create another form. God knows we don't need that. Are there any things on here that we can put an NA next to instead of, I don't know, talking about a female in her period, maybe just put an NA. So they don't have to answer that. Is there anything else? I just know that when we have had situations like Tim said earlier about a young lady that gave birth and didn't tell anybody. But anyway, there's a lot of situations, a lot of times, because Tim got it on the other side too from our health service. I need to know this information. I don't have this information. We used to have access to this information. I just don't know why this can't be shared. And if there's information on here that we as a group, as a committee feels that they don't have to share, then we put NA next to it. Is that even feasible?
I certainly think we could if we're gonna adopt a form, we could look at the existing form and as a committee or see what other states have done and maybe pare it down to the more kind of bare essentials. I mean, we've brought up the menstrual cycle question several times, and I've been an athletic trainer for a long time, and I can't think of once where it was important whether I knew what the menstrual cycle was. I mean, maybe if we're talking the female triad, but other than that, not really. So I think we could definitely pare it down to the important ones, you know, cardiac issues, asthma, allergies, things like that. Surgical history, recent surgical history, that would cover the did you just give birth one, like
Pam, I think the path of least resistance to immediate change is to provide some sort of a cover letter that we would then say, hey, yes, this is the generic form. It's adopted by 48 states. It's adopted in our state currently. The NIAA recognizes that there is some very private information on here. We're kindly asking that these pieces of information be included in it, these ones possibly not being included in it. And then they can make their decision based on their practice on how they want to fill that information out.
So with that said, do we make them sign off? I know, is that being a little callous? But do we have them sign that off, acknowledging that they have read that?
I don't know if we have the jurisdiction to do that personally. Maybe with the parents, maybe
man,
with
what's up?
the athletes, but not a
Yeah,
physician.
I'm in a Zoom meeting. What's up, man?
I think
Rollins, mute.
there you go. I think a lot of this discussion, we're talking about a lot of the problems that just exist with pre-participation exams in general. Like people just skate through them. Like I'm guilty. I don't want to say I'm guilty of this, but for example, my school offers a physical night where I bring in a team of local physicians that are donating their time. I bring in local physical therapists. We assembly line it. They go through, they get their physical done. They hand it in. And even if we're not offering that as a school, like not a lot of the kids I feel like are going to their primary care physician during their well checkup where they'd usually do that. It usually seems to me like it's a rushed thing. They're doing it the last minute to get done. And these things get skipped. This is one of the problems with pre-participation physicals, period. And so we're kind of trying to fix a problem that's existed forever, I think. And I think a cover letter is a good way to do it. We need to impress upon these people, this is important. We need this information.
You know, I just pulled up, I figured I'm going to go on the two ends of the spectrum. I pulled up California and I pulled up Florida. I thought, you know, politically, that's about as far apart as you're going to get in this country. Geographically, it's about as far apart as you're going to get in this country. So I pulled them up and I looked at both of their forms, and I'll be damned if California's is not exactly ours and Florida is exactly the same thing. It's exactly the same thing. But the difference was on the Florida one, there seemed to be that little inclination that if you're what you said, Dr. Scott was right. You need to fill this out. This needs to be done, and you need to let them know where I see what you're saying, and I know what Adam's saying is spot on. You know, we're trying to change the societal habit, which is rush, hurry up, last minute, get me through. And my other concern is this, and I can't address it for all schools, but I can address it for where I come from in the South. There's a preponderance of physicals that are conducted at pharmacies, and I don't know if they have the physical capability of storing all the documentation we're asking them to. And I'm wondering if they're even storing it there themselves, or if they fill out their part, they're cleared, they go, and they move them on. And I don't even know if they know they were supposed to provide that documentation to the school. And I'm concerned about that. I'm not trying to throw shade on any organization. I'm just saying, I just wonder what is really stored there, or if it's get them through, do the minimum amount for a physical and get them out, because we're, you know, it's mass assembly line for a lot of them to get that stuff done. So I don't know if there is a solution to this. I really don't. Other than I know that if I don't come back to Sherry McPartland from CCSD and tell her we discussed this and this is what we came up with, she may rip the rest of the hair off my head. So I want to make sure I talk to Sherry and express to her our concerns as well, because I think they're founded. I don't think the solution is taking that top box off, because I think that opens us up for a whole new problem where we're going against nationally recognized procedures and protocols. And I don't think that lawsuit is anywhere going to be near my desk that I want it. So, I don't know. I really don't know the name.
Can we maybe, in speaking with other platforms recently, in regards to like Activate RMA and stuff like that, another one that we spoke with, they actually had the ability to limit who can access information. Is that something we could take to RMA and basically say, hey, look, we want to get this information in there to the people who need it, but we need to limit it from the people who can't? Is that maybe an easier solution, is to fix our platform to limit the information to the people who don't need it?
I don't think that's a problem at all. I think we can go in and tell them, listen, we need a medical slot where they put medical information in that is only accessible at the highest level. My concern
Right.
would be, are we allowed to have that medical information to begin with? Is it okay for them to provide it to us or for us to request it? That's the question I would have to have answered from legal. I think that's the question for Paul to say, listen, if we go to Activate and say they're going to put in an upload slot that is such tight access to it that only certain people can even open it, are we still allowed to ask for that piece of information?
Yeah.
That's my question.
Yeah, it's a good point. And, if we're talking strictly legal liability here, within the HIPAA and the FERPA laws, those people do have access to that information. I think a lot of this probably came from, as was alluded to earlier, from some political pressure to who actually has access to this information. And it may have been like a rebound that came too far, to fix a problem, we've now limited it from the people who actually need this information. Just listening to all this, it just seems the easiest solution may be to find out if we could limit access to it, and then that might fix the majority of our problems here. But I don't know how easy that is and who we would have to get approval from to do that, but it's just
I
something to
don't
thought.
think, I don't think that would be nearly as difficult as creating a new pathway for a new form. I think it would be simply
Correct.
an access slot.
Yeah.
In that is simply, you can't have access to this unless you're at that level.
And as Carol was saying in the chat earlier, that 48 states are using this form. We don't want to be the detractor there. We don't want to be the one that's going against what everybody else is doing. We've set the precedent in Vegas here that everybody else is copying what we do, in regards to this kind of medical care and stuff. I would hate to see it go the opposite way.
Agreed.
So just had a random new concern that I never even really thought about. And maybe I'm swinging more the other direction now, like away from this forum or away from the idea of just turning in that last page. How do we even know they did the medical history form? Like, because you said that people just come in and churn them out. What if they're only bringing that eligibility form in and they aren't even doing that history form? And that's one of the big cogs. And now I'm like, oh, we need to almost have proof that, like,
I've had that same conversation with my athletic director. Like, we're getting one form signed off by a doctor in town I've never heard of, and I'm just supposed to go with it, apparently. Like, I've had the exact same concern.
I mean, we can't be the first people having these issues in this conversation.
No.
Is there
No.
other we could talk to other SMAC committees in other states that maybe have addressed this issue already, or have put ideas on the table of how they can follow the way that's being recommended while still getting the information we need?
I
I don't
have
know,
talked to I've talked to some other athletic trainers and the secondary school group I'm a part of, and they said they still do take the history in some of the places, and this is from all corners of the country. It's anyone that's been a member of the committee, and there's some states that are still taking in the history form. So I don't think that's out of the question. It is something that's happening. Yeah, I think a little more research would be something that we could and should do before
right?
saying one way or another.
Right. I mean, I hate to kick the can down the road, but it feels like we all kind of feel the same way, but we just don't know how to proceed with what we want. And it might be helpful to, I don't know, Tim, if you have access to other SMAC committee like members or leaders that maybe, or Mark, maybe you do. I don't know, maybe that if we can get some information from those people to see how they've maybe discussed this or handled it.
So here's what I can do. I can reach out to the NFHS and they can send out a survey to all 50 states. And they can ask them a very specific set of questions. We can ask them whatever we want. What I would like to do is right now, what would that question be? That way, if I want it to be very narrow and I don't want it to be a lot. If we can get a one question survey, that would be phenomenal. So what would that question be?
Do you allow the history form to be turned in? Is your medical history form turned in with physical forms?
Okay, I like that. Okay, because the other thing I don't want to do is I do not want to ask them a question that's going to expose them and prevent, you know what I'm saying? Okay, so is your, I'm writing, excuse me.
Yeah, all good.
And then, I know you want to keep it one question, but as the follow-up is, who has access to that information? That might be exposing people, like you said, because they may not have, I feel very confident in our group that we think things through pretty well. And I fear that maybe other states maybe have never even really talked about this. And, oh, well, what do you mean our coaches shouldn't have access to this information? Kind of, I don't know,
Right.
maybe not, maybe underestimating it.
I mean, if we just find out, hey, yeah, other states are turning in the history form, we can decide how we provide it, how access is.
I got too many words going through my head right now. Like, I want to
Sorry.
make sure I'm narrow, but I'm not too broad. Is your medical history form as part of your pre-participation physical submitted?
Submitted to schools, or yeah.
Okay, is your medical history form part of the form?
When we do these, how I look at this as a physician is I give the whole form to the athlete, to the parents, and what they do with it is up to them. What the schools collect is up to them. Like, none of that's my problem. My problem is to do the whole thing and give the person, the patient, their medical record, because it's their information. What happens beyond that isn't really up to the physician. Now, maybe some physicians just fill out the last page and give that back to them, but I've always given them the whole thing.
I was gonna say, like, yeah, that's an interesting name because it says should not be shared with the schools. Like, who keeps that form then? Does the physician's office keep that, or do they actually provide that to the patient?
My guess is the patient
Carol, you're
keeps it.
nodding.
The physician was supposed to, my understanding.
Yeah.
Typically, they hand the third page back, take this to your school. The other pages stay as part of the official medical record in the office.
Okay.
Okay, I changed the question again. Do you collect the medical history form as a part of your physical requirements? Is that it? Is that correct? What would you submit?
Pre-participation physical. Pre-participation physical.
Pre-participation physical. Pre-participation physical requirements. You collect a medical history. Okay. Do you collect a medical history form as part of your pre-participation physical requirements? And question 2, who has access to those? All right, I can send that in today. I don't know how.
Is that second question going to be an open-ended one, or are you going to give them like choices?
Open-ended. The better,
Okay.
the more open in these type of questions with these directors, I have found that if you give them a yes, no, you're going to get a no with no explanation or a yes with no explanation. You
Got
leave
it.
it open-ended, they kind of type a little. Found that out the hard way.
How quick do you think you'll get a response on those questions?
No guarantee. Some of them we get back quick, some of them we don't. Some of them linger for months and we don't hear back for on a while. But any survey that's sent out, we do get the results back, whether we posed the question or we answered the question. So it's a good process. It just takes time sometimes.
Well, even if everybody doesn't respond in a timely manner, I mean, even getting 15, 20 different states to tell us what they're doing would be beneficial.
Now I do have the capability of just reaching out to section 7-8, which is us, Utah, California, Oregon, the West Coast, all the way over to Montana and straight down. I can do that just on my own, and we can find out what they're doing on that side, on the side of the country from New Mexico over. We'll get the answers for all of that. So I can do that and probably have that back by the end of the week.
And if that's quicker, that's probably enough.
Okay.
I mean, I don't.
I can do that today as well. I'll send that to, we have a running thread where we ask each other questions, legal, professional and operational every single day. So,
I think, yeah,
I get to play the new guy card a lot. So they give me preferential treatment.
I think if we can get 6 to 8 states to tell
yeah.
us what they're doing, that might be enough to kind of direct what we would need to do instead of waiting for 50 states.
Yep, I can do that. I can do that today as well. I'll get that done. I will just do this with our section 7 and section 8 compatriots. So, okay.
But then we probably need to come back to this before the end of the year
Mhm.
if we need to make a decision moving forward for the 2025, 2026 school year.
Yep, and that still gives us time to, here's the thing, we can make the recommendation, the board can approve it, and we can include it in the forms for next year without any problem with that. I think we still have a good time. If we meet again, let's say with sometime, maybe we just reconvene in April in a couple of weeks here. Give us a couple of weeks. We reconvene on just this one topic and we table this for right now.
Would the board be able to approve this before, let's say, Memorial Day? Because like you said, as soon as spring sports end, athletes are getting physicals for next year and already uploading and registering there. So like, if we're going to do it, it really has to be within the next 60 days.
Yep. So what we can do is the one thing I hate doing more than life itself, which is called an emergency meeting of the Board of Control. And it can be just this one item, this form, and we can do that. That can be done. I don't like doing it because I just don't like doing it. I don't like the word emergency meetings at all. So we can do that. I think if we come back here and we realize this, we can do it. We can do a one item, one agendized item, get them in there, explain it, and go on. And I'll lay the groundwork the first week on April 1st and 2nd about what we're looking at and where we're at so that they have the knowledge going forward with it so that we can share that. So this won't be something they won't know is coming, and I'll let them know. We've had 2 emergency meetings so far, I believe, this year, which is 2 more than I want to have next year. So hopefully we can do that. But yeah, Adam, we can pull an emergency meeting. We only need to agendize it and have it out 3 days before the meeting, so we can do it within 72 hours.
And when again is your meeting with the board of directors?
April 1st and 2nd. So I got 2 weeks to get everything else. So what I'll do is I will put this on as a discussion item now, which makes it a little easier. And then I will attach the form, the complete form, pages 1 and 2, instead of pages 1 and 3, which is what I did by attaching the Spanish version. I'll make sure it's the full form correctly. And we can discuss it it'll be a discussion item with the board. Plus that'll also have Paul, the attorney there, so he can go into that. And in the meantime, I'll also reach out to Activate to find out, can we make this a high level slot to include a document that only identified individuals would have access to. So. Any other discussion on this item? Hearing none. I think item 9 is future planning. I think we have just pretty much just done that as well. Is there anything else for future planning that we need to discuss at this time?
Tim, I wanted to jump in real quick.
Sure, go ahead, Doc.
So as we're kind of looking forward to the next sports season and football starting up again, I did want to bring it back to the committee's attention that there is a decent amount of research that's now coming on about additional add-ons for player safety. So one of those being the Guardian cap. And I don't know if it's something that this committee individually wants to address, but we're now beginning to see research that's coming out using this at large across like the high school area, and also some NFL data that they're actually starting to dig through. And we're actually seeing that the Guardian caps so far have no reduction in harm risk and actually have an increased risk of concussion rates. So it's something that, at least because I'm in this realm and see it often and frequently, it's beginning to come more and more on our radar, and it's being asked around town as well, that there are some definite concerns and safety concerns with using the Guardian cap. The other add-on would be like the Q collar and those things, which don't have any evidence to suggest they actually reduce concussion rates as well. So I don't know at some point if there are concerns. I know that Jeremy and I have chatted, and so Carol and I have chatted about like Q collars and those type of things and some of just the general health concerns. But these are things that possibly we want to look at before the next season starts.
All right, I will add that in.
Dr. Murray, quick question. Like when you say discuss, like, and I've read some of the studies myself, and I just kind of want to ask your opinion. Are you talking about like, is the evidence to the point where as a committee, we would recommend against the use of a Guardian cap? Is that kind of what you're leaning towards?
Personally, yes. And obviously I'm biased because I'm one of the authors that has evaluated the Guardian cap safety using instrumented head data. So I think that that's something we need to be really cautious about, at least on my side. But if I'm looking at the other data that's now becoming larger and larger, it's telling a consistent story. But then when we get filtered news down from like the NFL that's saying there's a reduction in risk, reduction in harm, and then independent sources validate that data and actually show a different relationship, I think that there's something that may be missing in this context, especially maybe a conflict of interest from Guardian Cap providing monetary incentives to the NFL. I just think it sends a mixed signal to our high school athletes. And I think that we are beginning to actually see increased injury rates with using the Guardian Cap in high school, which is a concern.
Well, and I bring it up because our booster program has actually asked if they should fund caps for the whole team. I said no, citing, you know, some of the reading that I've done. But
yeah,
the answer, you know, the response I get back is, well, NFL players are wearing them during games now. And I'm like, yeah.
What I can do is I'll
Still
send
no.
out some of the recent evidence on that for you guys to take a look at. And I think everyone has their own little fiefdom and kingdom they can make some jurisdiction about. But I think across the board, the evidence right now is pretty well stacked against the use of it. And it can, I think it's a little dangerous personally, but yeah. And then people always ask, where are we going to put the money? And I'm like, well, put it back into your athletic training services. Get out. That's crazy. Come on. Take your $25,000 you spent on those Guardian caps and increase that person's salary who's already underpaid and underfunded. But that's just my interpretation.
Anything else for the good of the order? All right, if not, I'll move to item number 10, public comment. This time provides an opportunity for citizens to address the committee about any matter not on the agenda. Item raised during this portion of the agenda cannot be deliberated or acted upon. Should a member of the public wish to speak on a matter not listed on the agenda, it is asked that said person please complete a green public comment card and submit it to the committee chair prior to the opening of this item. A limit of 3 minutes per person and/or 5 minutes for the spokesperson of a particular group may be imposed. It is requested that comments be directed to the committee as a whole. Comments that are determined to be irrelevant, repetitious, offensive, inflammatory, willfully disruptive, or deemed to be personal attacks will not be permitted. There is no one here. Tia, I haven't gotten any email. Have you gotten anything?
Nothing.
Nothing. So with that, I will thank you for your time as always. I will get that information back out to everyone as soon as I get it from the Section 7-8 folks, and that should be quick. They're pretty responsive again, and I will share that with you all as soon as I get it. And look forward to seeing you all. And thank you.